In China, every city has a central heating system, and it will use large amounts of coal during winter. Harbin, one of the coldest cities in northern China, recently was hit by heavy pollution on the first day of winter heating. Last winter, Beijing also experienced the worst air pollution in history. It made the government realize that it has a hard battle to fight. This October, Beijing released a new emergency plan to deal with possible heavy air pollution. Let's find out more. The emergency plan will be in effect when the Meteorology Bureau gives a red alert on heavy air pollution in advance. PM 2.5 is commonly used to measure the air pollutants with a diameter of less than 2.5 micrometers. If red alert was given, it means the air quality index will reach over 300, and the concentration of PM 2.5 will keep at around 250 micrograms per cubic meter for at least 3 days. And when the red alert alarms in Beijing, 6 regulations will be implemented throughout the city. First regulation will be the closing of some factories as it reduces 30% of emission in Beijing. Second, stopping some demolition projects. Third, stopping fireworks in Beijing. Fourth, removing barbecue stalls from the street. Fifth, motor vehicles will be limited by odd and even-numbered license plates, and the trucks must not carry sand or anything that may cause more particles in the air. 6. Closing the elementary, primary, middle, and high schools. This is the first large-scale plan for air pollution, and nearly everyone living in Beijing will be affected. But how much can these regulations help to ease the heavy air pollution? We invited experts from the environmental NGO Greenpeace and a Danish company who offer air pollution solutions to talk about their opinions.
Some of them are actually taking steps in the direction of reducing pollution by closing old technology plants, manufacturing plants, power plants around Beijing area. That will help. On the car and the vehicles in Beijing, to reduce also number of cars on the street will help also. But I think people have sometimes a wrong impression what is the main contributor to this pollution. It's not necessarily the cars. The cars take up maybe around 20% of the pollution in Beijing. And most of it is actually from industry around Beijing. For barbecues on the street, demolition projects, yes, a little bit. But for barbecue on the street, I think that's been part of Chinese life for hundreds of years. And I don't think that's a big contributor to the pollution here. But I think these 6 regulations could have some benefit. But in general, China needs to look at applying the most modern technology to clean the exhaust from industrial activities, as well as cars and engines from different purposes. That will help.
Last year, when Beijing was hit by the heavy fog and haze, some cement plants were closed by the government, and they're one of the major pollution contributors. However, the closure was too late and didn't help to improve the weather. Beijing government learned from the experience, and this year it hopes to take action before the weather deteriorates.
Suspending the school days for the children, for the teenagers, actually is showing that the government is taking serious about the public health, especially for the most vulnerable population. And to limit the vehicle use is quite a strong determination, actually. But still, that we can see that emergency plan is a plan that only be practiced after a very heavy pollution happened in Beijing. It's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution to ease the air pollution problem in Beijing city.
It's a good sign that the Beijing government finally took action. However, when the red alert is lifted, the cars and factories will return to normal. The government is expected to have a long-term solution. London used to be a well-known foggy city a half-century ago, and its solution at that time was mainly to move the coal-fired industries out of Britain. China's pollution is also largely due to the large amount of coal consumption, but now it has more choices than simply removing the polluted factories out of the cities. That is to replace coal with clean energy and at the same time to treat the industrial and automobile exhaust.
You know, investment in environmental solution is normally something the companies do when the government tell them to do it. It's legislation driven. it's not economic benefits by doing it. So China's legislation these days are tightening the regulations on what you can let out in the atmosphere. And that gives, of course, companies like us more opportunities to sell our products.
This September, Beijing released a 5-year Clean Air Action Plan from 2013 to 2017. It aimed to reduce particle density by 25% by 2017 compared with 2012 and to keep the concentration of PM 2.5 particles at a level of 60 micrograms per cubic meter. This planned action has shown the Chinese government's ambition to fight pollution. However, improving the environment is much more complicated than pursuing economic growth. Environmental protection requires cooperation between cities and provinces that used to be rivals on GDP growth competitions.
This is a 5-year plan, but to tackle the air pollution problem and to evaluate that if we have done enough, it cannot be only wait and see until 5 years, actually 4 years now, 4 years later from now. We hope that there will be midterm evaluation plan, for instance, like in 2015, to evaluate that if we have done enough, if the target, the coal reduction target is sufficient enough.
You have to look at the total solution, not only for Beijing, but Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei province, because the area is connected. And I think the bad thing with Beijing, it has a bad location. It's accumulated around Beijing because of the mountains in the background here. So only windy conditions to blow the pollution away seems to help for a few days.
By 2017, Beijing will reduce 13 million tons of coal consumption per year, and its neighbor Tianjin will reduce 10 million per year, Hebei province 40 million, and Shandong province 20 million. It means large number of steel, cement plants, electric power plants, and other coal-fired plants are supposed to be shut down. Through these numbers, the Chinese government has shown their ambitions to ease pollution, but whether they can reach the goal still depends on more regulations in details. We'll continue to follow the anti-air pollution policies in Beijing in the future.